The room was quiet. The lights were dim, the camera rolling, and Jamie Dornan sat across from the interviewer with that familiar mix of calm and vulnerability. His voice was steady, but his eyes told a different story. "It changed my life," he said softly. "And not in the way people think." For a moment, there was silence. The kind that only comes before a truth too personal to hide behind charm or practiced smiles. Jamie Dornan has always been a man of contradictions. The model who hated the spotlight. The actor who never wanted fame. The global heartthrob who found stardom almost by accident. But behind every headline and red carpet moment lies a story few have ever heard. The one about the choice that defined his career. The moment he had to decide between keeping his peace or chasing even more fame. It began right after 50 Shades of Grey, the film that changed everything. Overnight, Jamie went from being a respected television actor to one of the most recognizable faces in the world. Every magazine wanted him. Every talk show demanded him. He was suddenly the fantasy of millions. But while the world was celebrating his rise, Jamie was quietly falling apart. The fame was suffocating. The attention, endless. People stopped seeing him as Jamie. They saw only Christian Grey. He couldn't go out without whispers following him. Couldn't do an interview without being asked about the same scenes, the same rumors, the same fantasy that wasn't his reality. He later admitted in an interview, "It was strange. You work your whole life for success, and when it comes, you realize it's not what you imagined. I felt like I was losing myself." That feeling only grew stronger when the studio offered him what most actors could only dream of, an extended multi-film contract worth hundreds of millions. It wasn't just about continuing the franchise, it was about turning Jamie Dornan into an unstoppable brand. His team said it would make him a household name forever. But the thought of it made him feel trapped. Friends say that during that period, Jamie would spend long nights awake, sitting in the dark, thinking. The pressure from Hollywood was immense. His agents told him this was the opportunity of a lifetime. But he couldn't shake a quiet voice in his head asking, at what cost? At home, Amelia Warner, his wife and emotional anchor, noticed the change. She later described that time as a storm he carried inside. Jamie wasn't angry or distant, he was lost. Torn between ambition and authenticity, between what the world wanted from him and what his heart needed to stay whole. There's one story that has stayed with fans for years. A night when Jamie finally opened up to Amelia. He told her, "If I say yes, I'll never have a normal life again. I'll be owned by this image." Amelia listened quietly, then said something that would stay with him forever. "You don't need to prove who you are to the world. You just need to remember who you are to yourself." That sentence became his turning point. The next morning, Jamie called his agent. And instead of negotiating, he walked away. He turned down the billion-dollar opportunity that would have cemented his name in Hollywood history, and chose, instead, to disappear for a while. The reaction was brutal. Industry insiders called him foolish. Headlines mocked his decision. Fans begged him to reconsider. But Jamie didn't waver. He went quiet, spending time with his family, away from cameras, rediscovering what peace felt like. Years later, he admitted in an interview that those days were the hardest and most liberating of his life. "Everyone thought I was crazy," he said with a small laugh. "But sometimes you have to lose the world to find yourself again." It wasn't about quitting fame, it was about reclaiming meaning. As one producer put it, Jamie didn't walk away because he hated success. He walked away because he didn't want to be trapped by it. The choice changed everything: his career, his reputation, his future. Because in an industry obsessed with more fame, more money, more attention, Jamie Dornan did something radical. He said no. And in doing so, he discovered something no contract could buy: freedom. But what came next was even more surprising, because his decision to walk away didn't end his career. It transformed it in ways no one could have predicted. When Jamie Dornan made that phone call, the one where he turned down a contract that could have made him one of Hollywood's richest stars, He had no idea how much his life was about to change. For a while, it felt like the world had gone silent. The studios stopped calling. The tabloids lost interest. The endless invitations to red carpets and premieres slowed to a trickle. Jamie was no longer the it man. He was the actor who had walked away. And yet, for the first time in years, he could breathe. He spent his mornings cooking breakfast for his daughters, taking them to school, walking alone through the streets of London without being chased by flashing cameras. He started rediscovering the quiet things, the kind that fame had stolen from him: stillness, family dinners, laughter that wasn't rehearsed for a camera. I realized that my life had been running on noise, Jamie later said in an interview. Every day was loud, success was loud, fame was loud, people's opinions were loud. When the noise stopped, I finally heard myself again. But even in that peace, the doubts lingered. Was he making the biggest mistake of his career? Would Hollywood ever take him seriously again? Then, one evening, an unexpected opportunity arrived, not from a major studio, but from an independent filmmaker named Kenneth Branagh. The project was Belfast, a small, deeply personal film about family, faith, and home. There were no massive contracts or luxury trailers, just a story that spoke to Jamie's soul. He said yes immediately. It turned out to be the best decision of his career. When Belfast premiered, critics praised Jamie's performance as one of the most honest and heartfelt of his generation. Suddenly, the same industry that had once mocked his decision to step away was applauding him for his authenticity. Awards season came, and for the first time, Jamie wasn't being judged for his looks or fame, but for his craft. In one emotional interview during that time, Jamie reflected on his journey. There was a version of me that chased every opportunity, that believed bigger meant better. But when I stopped chasing, the right things finally found me. He went on to appear in films like The Fall, A Private War, and The Tourist, each one chosen not for fame, but for meaning. Each one a reflection of the man he had become, grounded, deliberate, and unapologetically himself. But the most defining moment came during a film festival QA. A young actor in the audience stood up and asked, "How did you know it was the right decision to walk away from something everyone said would make you?" Jamie smiled, his tone calm but firm. "Because sometimes the thing that's supposed to make you can also destroy you," he said. "I chose peace over perfection. And I've never regretted it." That single quote went viral. It became a mantra for anyone struggling between ambition and happiness. Fans shared it across social media with messages like, "Jamie Dornan chose himself, and that's the real success." In the years that followed, Jamie became known for something entirely different. Not the billionaire tycoon of 50 Shades, but the man who quietly defied Hollywood's rules. He built a career on authenticity, balancing powerful roles with the simple joys of fatherhood and privacy. He once said to a friend, "Fame made me visible, but it also made me disappear. Walking away brought me back." And perhaps that's why his story resonates so deeply. Because it's not just about acting, it's about choosing yourself when the world tells you to sell your soul. In a later interview, when asked if he would ever change his decision, Jamie shook his head and smiled. "If I'd chosen differently, maybe I'd have more money or more fame. But I wouldn't have myself. And that's everything." He paused, then added quietly, "It really did change my life." Those words carried no regret, only gratitude. Because in the end, the decision that once seemed like a risk had become the very thing that set him free. As the interview wrapped, Jamie looked down for a moment, a faint smile crossing his face. "I think we all have that one moment," he said, "where we either keep running or finally stop and listen. That was mine." The audience was silent, not out of shock, but reverence. Because in a world that celebrates noise, Jamie Dornan had done the rarest thing of all. He chose silence, and found his truth inside it.